In today's video, we are going to be looking at the pros and the cons of living in Bluffton, South Carolina. The good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So if that's something that interests you, stick around because we are about to get after it right now. You want to know everything there is to know about the South Carolina Lowcountry, whether it's Bluffton, Beaufort, Hilton Head Island, or Jasper County, then subscribe below and tap that bell for notifications so you'll be the first to know about everything happening right here. My name is David Simcox, host of this channel and the leader of the Lowcountry Lifestyles team right here in Bluffton, South Carolina. I get calls and emails every day from people just like you and you and you looking to make their move here, and I absolutely love it. So whether you're moving in 3 days, 3 months, or even 3 years, give me a call, send me an email, shoot me a text, or you can even book a Zoom call, all in the description below so I can help you find your Lowcountry lifestyle. Now today we're talking about the pros and the cons of living in Bluffton, South Carolina. Now, I made this same video about 2 years ago, and I've had an additional 2 years to think about it, so I definitely have an entirely new list of pros and cons to update you with. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with number 10. All right, so we will start with a pro here. And the pro number, I guess you could say 10, is the gorgeous weather. We have some of the most incredible weather around. Now, I actually moved here from South Florida, and South Florida has basically 2 seasons. They have warm and they have hot. And one of the things I absolutely love about South Carolina is you actually do get 4 seasons. Summer is very hot, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I've lived in the South, I lived in Texas, I lived in Florida, and now I've been in South Carolina, so I'm used to hot. And the spring and the fall are just absolutely gorgeous here. It's some of the prettiest weather you'll ever see anywhere in the country. You can go out boating and enjoy the outdoors so much of the year, and then the winter, it's not that bad. So I'm actually filming this almost in the end of January 2025, and we're having a cold snap right now, and it's like 30 degrees, and that's abnormally cold for the winter time. And so typically in the winter time, maybe you're in the 50s during the day and dropping down into the 30s or 40s at night. But then you'll have some winter days where you're up in the 60s and 70s. So it's a very mild winter, but you do get that changing of the seasons, which I absolutely love. We're gonna go to con number 10. All right, so this one also has to do with the weather, and this is the risk of hurricanes. And it's just part of life if you live on the East Coast. Again, I lived in Florida before I came here, and I definitely dealt with way more hurricane drama down there. I've been here about 11 years, and I've only evacuated one time. And part of it was I wanted to go see my uncle who lived in Atlanta, so we chose to evacuate. But I don't know what it is about the shape of the coast or whatever, but supposedly this area is statistically very unlikely to get hit. But the good thing about hurricanes, I guess if you could say a good thing, is you know they're coming a week in advance, and you can prepare your property, you can decide to leave and evacuate if you want to. And of course, the local governments will tell you how to prepare and also if you should be evacuating. So again, every part of the country has their own things, their own natural disasters. You've got earthquakes in some parts of the country, you've got fires in some parts of the country, you've got tornadoes in the Midwest. So yes, we do have hurricanes, but it's part of life, and it's an excuse to have a hurricane party for a lot of people. All right, moving on to pro number 9. All right, we're going down the list. We're going in reverse order. I say that this is the ideal location. Meaning if you want to go explore the best of the Southeast, you can go north, east, west, south. If you're living in Bluffton, you're 20 minutes away from downtown historic Savannah with amazing nightlife, amazing restaurants, amazing culture. You're 20 minutes away from historic Beaufort, the beaches on Hilton Head. You're less than an hour away from Hunting Island State Park and all the beaches out there. You can literally be up in the mountains of North Carolina within 4 or 5 hours if you want to go skiing or snowboarding. There are so many places here in the Southeast that you can go explore, and I feel like Bluffton is the absolute perfect jumping off point to go to any and all of those. All right, so moving on to con number 9. All right, it's not all roses and sunshine in Bluffton. Number 9, I think, in my opinion, there's limited job opportunity. A lot of folks that move to Bluffton are retirees, and more recently, I'm seeing a lot more remote workers coming in from, like I always say on this channel, New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, all over, even across in other countries in Europe. But, you know, there are small businesses here. There are some job opportunities. There are some big employers over in Savannah. But I have heard that as a complaint by some of the young folks that grew up here and they go to college. A lot of times they're going off to Charlotte or Atlanta or some of the bigger cities and bigger hubs to pursue those bigger job opportunities. Not to say there's not some industry here. For example, if you want to work in the golf industry or the hospitality industry, lots of that. You've got Gulfstream over in Savannah. There's a new, I think, Hyundai plant that's moving into the Savannah area. So there are some decent sized employers, but in my opinion, a little bit of limited job opportunity. All right, so we are going to go on to pro number 8. We're going down the list. And this is the proximity to the beaches. All right. Many people love the beaches. They like riding their bike on the beach. They like walking their dog on the beach. They like hanging out on the beach with their kids. They like reading a book on the beach. And Hilton Head has some incredible beaches. And Hilton Head, like I said in the last segment, is only about 20 minutes away. And then if you want to drive over to Hunting Island over in the Beaufort side, that's an incredible, a very isolated looking beach. They filmed a lot of Forrest Gump out there. It is gorgeous, and they have a campground out there as well. And even if you go down to the Savannah and the Georgia side, you've got Tybee Island. You've got some incredible, beautiful beaches around here. We are going to move on to con number 8, all right? And this one actually came from a new agent that's on my team. You're actually going to meet her in one of the upcoming videos. Her name is Mackenzie, and she is super sharp and super smart, but she's younger. And so she told me that she thinks Bluffton has very limited nightlife. There's only 1 or 2 bars that stay open late. One, I think Calhoun Street Tavern stays open pretty late on the weeknights and weekends. There was another one, what did she call it, Tailgators. I don't really go out at night because I have 3 kids, so I don't really know these bars. But not a whole lot of nightlife for young folks or older folks that want to go out. It doesn't matter. So a lot of people, if they want to go out and have a nightlife, they're going over to Savannah to kind of experience that. So, you know, if you're a partier and you're a night owl and you like the club scene, Bluffton, maybe not. I don't know. Think about it. Something to be aware of. All right. So we are moving on down the list to pro number 7. And this is called affordable luxury. All right. So in my opinion, I think that you can get a beautiful, beautiful home in an incredibly gorgeous neighborhood for a very good price, depending on where you're coming from. So really our luxury market here to live in the creme de la creme is going to be anywhere from like 2 to 5 million. And so if you're coming from somewhere like me, where I came from, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, like their luxury market is more like 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, as much as 50 million or $100 million. If you're coming from Los Angeles, again, for $1 million, you've got like a little cracker box house, like nothing. And even the private golf clubs here, we have gorgeous golf clubs like Berkeley and Belfair and Colleton, and the buy-in on those is like $100,000 or more or less, just a little bit, and then between $20,000 and $30,000 a year to live in those clubs. But there's places in Miami, I have people coming up that say their buy-in is like $1 million to buy into some of the private golf clubs, and they're paying way more than we are annually to live in some of those private golf clubs. And some of the houses here, what you'd pay $4 million or $3 million for, if you put that down in Miami or you put it out in LA, you would definitely be paying $20, $30, $40 million for the exact same house. So again, it depends on where you're coming from, but I do feel like our luxury market is very affordable and you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. All right, we have to move on to a negative. I'm sorry, but again, it's not all sunshine here. So the con number 7, the lack of big city entertainment and amenities. Again, I compare this to South Florida because this is where I moved from. But if you're coming from Atlanta, or you're coming from, any other major city, New York or somewhere like that, which I'm actually about to go to Manhattan tomorrow. But again, I'll talk about that some other time. We're lacking some of, we don't have any pro sports teams here. We don't have the museums, and we don't have, well, we do have some live theater, but we don't have like a Broadway type of thing with all kinds of plays and musicals and culture. We do have some pretty good restaurants here, in my opinion, but you go somewhere like New York or Washington, D.C., and you've got thousands upon thousands of restaurants of every kind of, whatever your flavor is. If you like ethnic food, or you like, whatever it is, there's something for everybody in the big city. And so Bluffton is part of the Lowcountry, which is what we call the slow country. And it is definitely for folks that are looking for a slower pace of life, in my opinion, and enjoying the outdoors. And so if you really love that big city life with the sports teams and all the things to do, just be aware that a lot of people have a little bit of separation anxiety from that stuff when they move here. All right, we are moving on to pro number 6. And so pro number 6 is the rich history in the South and in Bluffton. So I don't know if you watch this channel all the time or if you've seen all my shows, but I just put a video out this week with a gentleman who is the resident historian in Bluffton. And we did a whole 30-minute interview about the history of Bluffton. And there are some incredible things that have happened around here. And in and around the South, it's just a very, very rich history that goes all the way back to the founding of the United States. And even before that with, some of the indigenous folks that lived around here. And I mean, there's the Gullah Geechee community. There's so much going on with history here. And Savannah is one of the oldest and most historic cities around, just right, 20 minutes away. But a lot of people don't even know that the Civil War actually started in Bluffton under what's called the Secession Oak Tree. So if you want to Google that and look that up, there are just some crazy things that have happened in Bluffton. So the rich history, I think, is a pro because I'm kind of a history buff and I enjoy that kind of stuff. Now we're going to move on to con number 6. And I figured I would pair these together, and I almost didn't talk about this because I don't want to ruffle any feathers or anything like that, and I don't want to upset any viewers. But along with that rich history comes a dark history, because in the South, the economy was partially built on the backs of enslaved people from West Africa. And so that is a very dark part of Southern history, very dark part of American history, but it's the reality. It's what happened here. And that has turned into some beautiful things in regards to the Gullah Geechee community, which I talk about a lot on this channel. They have very rich traditions. Those are the descendants of the formerly enslaved West Africans that still live around here. And they've done an incredible job of preserving their history and their culture and their cooking and their language. Believe it or not, they actually have their own language, which was kind of a mashup, I believe, of some of the African languages and some of the English that came together, and they were able to communicate on these plantations, these rice and indigo and cotton plantations around here. But again, slavery is something that was terrible on American history. It also existed in Bluffton, and it was part of what was here. And so that's why that one is on my cons list. So again, I hope I didn't offend anybody by talking about that, but I thought I would just mention it. We are on number 5 of our pros. Woo! We get to talk about something happy again. This is a safe and family-friendly environment. So I mention this because I sell a lot of houses to people that are moving here for a better quality of life. And a lot of times it's people that are moving out of certain areas. They're working remotely, they've got kids, and they don't want their kids exposed to certain things in whatever area they're coming from. Whether that be they don't agree with what they're teaching them in schools, or they don't like the environment that they are in, or maybe the crime in and around where they're at, or whatever it is. And believe it or not, Bluffton is an extremely family-friendly environment. It almost and sometimes feels a little bit like Mayberry, you know, if you've ever seen that show, Andy Griffith. Not to that extreme, but they've got the farmers markets with lots of kids and families and everybody walking around. They've got tons of festivals and parades. And, you know, anytime there's anything going on in Bluffton, there's just crowds and crowds of families and kids and people. And it feels like a very, very wholesome and very, very safe environment to raise a family. And that's why a lot of families are being attracted to it. It has been voted as one of the #1 places to raise a family in the United States. And believe it or not, I don't live exactly in Bluffton. I'm a little bit out of Bluffton, but that is one of the main reasons that I moved here 11 years ago. Is I was actually living in South Florida, and I had just had kids. My kids were little babies, and I didn't want them around all the things that South Florida is associated with. And I love South Florida. The beaches are gorgeous, the water's gorgeous, but I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the background that it would be easy for a young person to get wrapped up in if they find themselves in the wrong crowd. So again, I'm not going to go into detail on that, but I think Bluffton is an amazing place to raise a family. All right, so let's move on to something on the negative side. Again, it can't all be positive, right? So this one also came from a young viewer, and this was a comment on my channel a while back, and I agree with it 100%. A lack of affordable housing. So this is, what are we on? Number 5 of our cons. And so there are some multifamily apartments for rent here. There are some homes for rent, but they're really expensive, okay? I'm just being honest with you guys. Coming from different parts of the country, and it's a big complaint by the people that are working in food and beverage and the people who are working at the hotels and the young people that just graduated college and they don't necessarily want to leave the area. It's really a challenge, and I'm not exactly sure how they're going to address it. I do see more and more and more multifamily units going up in and around this area. So maybe with more units and more competition, maybe that'll bring the prices down just a little bit. But I don't know, if you're a younger person or somebody that needs affordable housing and you watch this channel, just comment down below and tell me if this is something that you feel that you're struggling with. All right, we are moving on to pro number 4. All right, so pro number 4 is all the gated, amenity-rich communities. So a lot of people are moving to Bluffton for the lifestyle. And what I mean by that is the vast majority of Bluffton is made up of these planned communities, many of which are gated, and you can't go in and drive around and look unless you have somebody like me to be your Uber driver and show you through these neighborhoods. But they all have various levels of amenities. So many of them have pickleball. Many of them have golf. Many have resort-style pools, fitness centers, docks where you can access the river, restaurants within the gates. A lot of them have very detailed event calendars with things going on all day, every day. A lot of them have different clubs that you can join. So wine clubs, travel clubs, dog clubs, book clubs, any kind of club you could imagine. So if you're looking for something that includes that lifestyle aspect, then I highly recommend that you take a look at Bluffton, because we have some amazing gated, amenity-rich communities that really deliver on the lifestyle standpoint. All right, back to the negative. Again, have to throw in some negatives here. We are on to number 4, and this one is higher property taxes for second homes or investment properties. And I don't know why they do this, but I don't know. If you know more about taxes than me, maybe comment down below and let me know. A lot of states don't tax differently depending on whether it's your primary or secondary home. But in Bluffton and in and around this area, if this is not your primary home, you are going to pay, if it's an investment property or a vacation property, you're going to pay a much higher tax rate, more than double in most cases. To me, that discourages people from wanting to purchase a second home here and wanting to invest in the community. Maybe they're doing it to kind of like keep the landlords out and keep it primarily people that are living here full time. And that might also be, part of them trying to create that affordable housing, so it's not all rental units. I don't know exactly what the reason is, but for folks that are moving here from all over the country, and if they don't want to live here full time and they've got their other home back in their wherever they're from, it can be painful and in a lot of ways actually prevent them from actually making that decision to purchase in and around the Bluffton area in the Lowcountry, because that tax is so much higher. In most cases, more than double what it would be if you were a primary resident. All right, y'all, we're going on to number 3 on the pros and cons. And I said y'all because it is Southern hospitality. And I absolutely love the Southern hospitality, and I hope you do too. That to me is one of the greatest things about here. I love the hospitality. I love the people that everyone says hello to each other. People smile at each other. People are not afraid to make eye contact. I don't really see road rage, hardly ever. People do interact with their neighbors and their community. There's a level of respect that people give each other. And I love it. I love the Southern hospitality. And I feel like even the people that have moved here and relocated here, like they've picked up on that, you know, like they came here because they're attracted to it and they want to be part of it. And so I think that even a lot of the Northerners and West Coast people that come in, they sort of adopt that Southern hospitality and they make it their own. So I love the Southern hospitality. I've met a few people that don't like it. Sometimes coming from big cities, they're like, I don't want anybody opening my door. I don't want people talking to me. Leave me alone. You know, I don't know. But maybe people that feel that way are not going to enjoy living in Bluffton and the Lowcountry for very long. But I don't know. Comment down below. Tell me what you think of the Southern hospitality and if it's something that you like or does it annoy you. All right. All right. We are moving on to con number 3. So number 3 is the alligators. This is one of the first questions that people ask me when they jump in my car and we're driving around these neighborhoods and they're like, okay, so tell me the truth. Are there really alligators around here? And then of course I go out of my way and do my best to show them an alligator. And it works better on a day where it's kind of warm out and these guys are out sunning themselves on the banks. And so yes, the truth is there are alligators. And I put this in the cons list because I know a lot of people are sort of afraid of alligators, but really and truly, me personally, I would have put this in the pros list because I love alligators. I think they're super cool. I think they're beautiful to look at. I think they look prehistoric. They look like dinosaurs. But there is some alligator safety things that you could do. Like obviously don't go up and try to pet an alligator. But also if you're walking a small dog, like don't walk your small dog down by the water. Never, ever, ever feed an alligator because if they see you as a food source, then they will become aggressive. Also, during the season where they're having their babies, don't ever approach their young baby alligators because they would be aggressive. And I've seen that. I was actually out last year or the year before, I was out at the Heritage Golf Tournament in Hilton Head, and they had signs up everywhere down by the lagoon that said that it was breeding season or baby season, I don't know what that's called. And there was lots of little alligators out by the bank, and the golf tournament was going on, and they had signs everywhere, like stay away from this area because they didn't want the crowds encroaching on these little baby alligators. So yes, there are alligators, and there are some monster alligators, although most of them are like pretty small, but occasionally you'll see some big monsters. I think the biggest ones I've ever seen are actually out in Kalawasi Island and Data Island. But I don't know. If you watch this channel and you're local, tell me maybe where have you seen some giant alligators? There might be some other neighborhoods that have even bigger ones, but those are the 2 that I've seen. So we are on to pro number 2 for Bluffton, South Carolina. And I'm going to call this one River Life and Scenic Beauty. So Hilton Head has the beaches, but Bluffton has the rivers. And Bluffton has some incredible rivers. We've got the May River, we've got the Cooper River, we've got the New River, we've got the Colleton River, we've got the Okatee River, and believe it or not, almost all of these are saltwater embankments. So they are fed from the ocean, but they're absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you've got the Spartina grass out there waving in the wind. You've got the most beautiful birds flying around. And it is just gorgeous out there. And so that's what a lot of people like to do in and around Bluffton, is out exploring the area in their boats with their families or their friends or their dogs. And then it's actually tidal, so the tide goes up and down. And when the tide goes down, it exposes these sandbars, and that becomes a social scene. So everybody pulls their boats up on the sandbar. You might see 200, 300, 400 boats all pulled up on the sandbar, and everybody unloads their dogs and their kids, and they'll play music and run around and throw the frisbee out on these sandbars, and they're maybe having an adult beverage and just having a great time socializing with their friends. And it is awesome. That's what people like to do for fun. And then when the tide comes up, then the sandbar disappears, everybody gets on their boats and goes about their day running around and boating and fishing and pulling kids on tubes and all that other fun stuff. So the rivers and the absolute gorgeous scenic beauty is definitely one of the biggest pros to living in Bluffton, South Carolina. All right, so I'm just going to touch on this one quickly, but we're on con number 2, and con number 2 is the heat and the humidity. So it does get awfully hot here during the summertime. Again, I've always lived in the South and I've always been around the heat, so it doesn't really faze me. But I've had people that have come from like Minnesota or, you know, some of these other locations, and they're not used to the level of heat that we have in the summertime. And my answer to that is, well, we have air conditioners in the houses, and maybe that's a good reason to do some inside fun stuff during the summertime. Again, it doesn't really bother me that much because I'm so used to it. But I always tell people, if you've never experienced hot heat and humidity, come visit here in the summertime. Come spend a week here in the worst of the worst, like August or something like that, and see if you can handle it before you spend $1 million on your dream house. You know, like people come here in the spring and then they buy a house and then they're like, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be this hot. So my advice to you is definitely come and spend some time here and experience the heat in its worst. And maybe even come, like, if you're from Florida, like come here in January, February and experience the worst of the cold too. But anyway, we are on to number 1 pro of living in the Lowcountry, in my opinion, is the golf courses. And I'm not a super big golfer, but I am starting to golf a lot more. And I used to golf a lot more before I had kids, and then I kind of backed off when I moved into dad mode. But I'm picking it up a little more now because my 12-year-old, soon to be 13-year-old, is enjoying some golf. But we are in a golf mecca here. There are probably 30-40 golf courses within a 30-40 minute radius here. Some of them are public, some of them are semi-private, and some of them are private, meaning you have to live there or be a member to play there. But there are some of the most incredible golf courses here, and you can play year-round. So if you love golf, if you are a golf aficionado or a golf nut, definitely check out Bluffton, South Carolina, because it will not disappoint, I promise. All right, so that is my last pro, and I don't know why I did them backwards. I should not have ended on a negative note. I should have ended with the positive, but because of the way I line these up, I'm going to have to end this with a negative. Con number 1 is this is a very rapidly growing population here. It's one of the most popular places that people are moving to in South Carolina and in the South in general, and even in the US in general, which means that we're getting growing traffic. It's not debilitating. It's not as bad as Charleston. It's not as bad as in and around Somerville. It's definitely nothing like Los Angeles or Miami or New York or anything like that. But it is, you know, it's not quite what some of the people who grew up around here remember. So there are times where along Highway 278, you're getting a little bit of stop and go traffic. And there are times where maybe the DOT hasn't put a stoplight in yet somewhere that they should because they haven't caught up with the times yet. There are times where there's too much traffic for a given road, and it's caused a lot of potholes because they haven't been able to keep up. Like Highway 462, they're redoing part of it right now, but that's definitely seen a lot more traffic that it wasn't used to. Even during the morning rush hour, some of these roundabouts will have, 50 cars waiting to make the roundabout. So I'm just being truthful with you guys. I don't want you to come here and then be like, hey, you didn't tell me about all this traffic when I'm trying to leave my neighborhood in the morning to get to work. It's not horrible, but it's not like it was 10 years ago. So the traffic is growing, but I think Bluffton and the county and city officials are doing everything in their power to accommodate and make sure that we plan correctly for the growth, because I think it's just going to continue to grow because so many people are attracted to this. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my updated list of Bluffton, South Carolina pros and cons, the top 10 pros and the top 10 cons. And again, if I can help you find your low country lifestyle, give me a call, send me an email, shoot me a text, or even book a Zoom call. Me or someone on my team, the Low Country Lifestyles team, will help you out. You'll probably be speaking with me if you call in. And if you want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest happening here, always be sure and like, subscribe, and tap that bell for notifications so you'll know every time I drop a new video. My name is David Simcox. It's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you, and I hope to meet you in person at some point. But if not, I hope to at least see you on the next video.